Hey everybody, welcome back. Last week we did a poll asking what you might like to see for Valentine's Day dinner, and the bacon wrapped filet mignon won easily. So what we're making for you today is bacon wrapped filet mignon with air fried sweet potatoes, steamed broccolini, and a creamy mushroom pan sauce. So you ready? Let's get into this. As far as the ingredients goes, don't be alarmed. I'm making this live right now for 4 people at the house. But if you look down in the description of the video, all the ingredients, measurements, calories, protein, carbohydrates, and fat are all based upon dinner for 2. For the sweet potato, we got 1 large sweet potato, again a little bit of salt and pepper, and a small amount of olive oil. First thing we want to do is peel the skin. You don't really have to do this, but trust me, it's a lot better if you do. Like that. Then we're gonna slice these into thin wafers, probably 3 or 4 of them for each steak. Just be sure to keep them pretty thin because we're gonna be air frying these and we wanna make sure they cook through. So you want them about this thick. Once you have those done, we'll lay these out and season them. Just be sure you're seasoning them on both sides. So we're gonna brush them with a little bit of olive oil. And season with a little bit of salt and pepper. Then we flip them over and do the other side. We're gonna be using the air crisper on our Ninja Foodi pressure cooker. If you've got an air fryer, you can do that, or if you've got air fry in your oven, you can do that as well. Or if you don't have any of that stuff, you can do that in your oven at about 500 degrees as well. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and layer these onto our dehydrating rack actually, which actually will double as an air fryer rack. This doesn't come with the pressure cooker, but I have linked it down in the description of the video in case you want to check that out. And you just kind of lay these on here. Now you can see I'm doing these first, and the reason for that is these potatoes can be done and sitting while everything else is working, and they're not going to get messed up. When you're cooking a lot of stuff, you have to kind of keep in mind that you want to cook everything in a certain order. You want to start these first, and while they're cooking, you want to go ahead and get the steak going. And when the steak is done and resting, you can work on your pan sauce and do your vegetables last. Now that you got that loaded up, into the pressure cooker, bring that down, turn it on. We're gonna set this for air crisp. 400 degrees is good. And I would say 5 minutes is probably enough on this. If not, we can always run it a little bit longer.
2,000 years later.
Okay, I was actually way off. And we actually put another 12 minutes on there, so you're 18 minutes in the air fryer. And these are just about done here. So you're just gonna wanna put these aside. I like to set these in the microwave just to kind of keep them out of the way, and that way it'll keep them warm also. For the steak, we have tenderloin fillets, some toothpicks, Applewood bacon, some fresh thyme, a little bit of salt and pepper, some cloves of garlic, a little bit of butter, and some virgin olive oil. The next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and wrap our steaks. This is pretty easy stuff. You just take your tenderloin and you're gonna take a piece of bacon and we're gonna start at one point of the tenderloin and you're gonna wanna kind of stretch it around the meat like this, just to make sure you get a little bit of tension on it, and just keep wrapping it around till you get to the end here. And then you just go ahead and take a toothpick and just run that through it here, just to make sure it stays in place. And we're gonna do that with each one of these steaks. Next, we're gonna go ahead and brush them with a little bit of olive oil on both sides, and we're gonna wanna season it with the salt and pepper on both sides as well. It's not really necessary to oil the bacon because that's got really high fat content already. You just take a little bit of our salt and pepper combination, and you just kind of give that a nice heap and portion on both sides. Don't worry about the pepper being too spicy because when you cook pepper, it doles it out quite a bit. And then we'll go ahead and do the other side. Just be careful not to get your bacon messed up here. Next, we're going to want to heat a cast iron pan under medium-high heat. You can use a regular pan for this. I recommend using cast iron because we're going to be throwing this into the oven. So if you're not using a cast iron pan, be sure that the pan you are using is okay to heat at 450 degrees in the oven without warping it. In our pan, we're going to throw in our butter and our remaining olive oil from the steak. And we'll give that a second to heat up. When you start getting ripples in the oil, you'll know that it is hot enough for us to put these steaks in. Also, one thing to note is when we were prepping our steaks, be sure to let them sit out for a little bit and get down to room temperature before we start doing any of this stuff. That way you got a better chance of getting a good sear. That's a lot harder to do when you have cold meat. Okay, looks like this is ready to go. So on go the steaks. And we're going to throw in a couple of sprigs of thyme and a few cloves of garlic. Some people like to use minced garlic. In my case, I don't want too much garlic flavor in there. I don't want it to get all over the steaks, so I don't mind just leaving it whole and throwing it in there. Now we just need to give this a little time to cook on one side. Remember, we're only flipping these one time. We're going to let a crust develop on the bottom side, then we're going to flip them over and put them into the oven. And while it's in the oven, we'll get the crust built on the other side. How long we do this is going to depend on how you like your steaks cooked. And the best way to read that is by the internal temperature of the meat, which is why you're going to want to use a meat thermometer. Roughly 120 degrees is rare, 130 degrees is medium rare, 140 is medium, 150 is medium well, and 160 to 165 or so is well done. In our case, we're doing these at about a medium rare. So we're going to leave these on this side for about 3 to 4 minutes. Then we're going to flip them over and put them in the oven that we've already preheated to 450 degrees. One thing to note is that you're going to be tempted to use your tongs and pick them up and look at the bottom of them to see if they're cooked. Don't do that. Just leave them alone. Let them sit there for the full 4 minutes, and then we're going to flip them over. You want them to develop a crust, and if you turn them over too soon, you're going to mess all that up.
One eternity later.
Okay, it's been 4 minutes. Now we're going to go ahead and flip these over. Once again, be careful not to mess up your bacon. And now it's into the oven. Now we'll leave them here in the oven for another 4 minutes or so, and then we'll pull them out and check the temperature.
More moments later.
And you see this is going to be right at about 120, which is good because medium rare is about 120 to 125, and these are going to keep cooking up for another few minutes. So we want to pull these out now to rest and let them cook up the rest of the way on their own. And these are looking pretty darn good. So we'll let these set here, and we'll go ahead and work on our pan sauce and our steamed vegetables. And for our pan sauce, we have our baby bella mushrooms, a little bit of half and half here. You can actually use heavy cream if you like. We're using the half and half, trying to keep the calorie count down just a little bit. A little bit of Worcestershire sauce, some beef broth, some minced garlic, a little bit of shallot here. I'm going to show you how to mince that. Some butter, and of course, the salt and pepper. Before mincing your shallots, and this goes for garlic also, be sure to peel off the dry outer skin here, because we don't want that until you get down to the purple fleshy part, like that. And then you're just going to mince this thing, which is the same thing as dicing it, but you're just going to cut it into little tiny pieces. And really all you got to do is just kind of slice it into smaller pieces, arrange them sideways, then cut them the other direction, opposite the way you cut them before, collect them back together again, cut the opposite way, and so on and so forth until you get them diced down nice and small. Just be sure you don't get your fingers in there. Keep your fingers curled over, and sort of use your knuckle here as a guide. Just like that. And we'll go ahead and slice our mushrooms for the pan sauce as well. You want to slice those as thin as you can, and just be really careful not to cut yourself. Remember, whenever possible, bend that finger over and slide the knife down, just right down over your knuckle. And that knuckle that the knife is resting on should be out further than any of your other fingers. That way, you're as safe as possible. And you got those, and we can set these aside for later. For our pan sauce, we're working with the same pan that we just took all the steaks out of. We're going to be using all those little bits left over as a base for our sauce, but do take out the thyme sprigs if you use those. And I would actually take out these pieces of garlic as well, because we're going to be adding some new garlic in anyway. Want to heat this over medium heat. Okay, we'll throw in our beef broth and our mushrooms and the butter and our garlic and shallot combination. And we'll let that cook for a couple minutes. Give those mushrooms a chance to cook a little bit. You want to try to collect all that crust that built up on the bottom of your pan as well, because that's going to be really great in this sauce. Hey, by the way, if this is your first time here and you want to learn some cool new recipes, get some great cooking tips and tricks and all sorts of other kitchen related things, then start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so you never miss a thing. Next, we're going to add in our half and half and our Worcestershire sauce and that little bit of salt and pepper that we had. And we're gonna wait for this to thicken. If you're using half and half, you won't get quite as thick a sauce as you would just with straight up heavy cream. But if it doesn't thicken up enough, we can always add a tiny bit of cornstarch in there. You're gonna wanna go ahead and reduce that heat down to about a medium low. While this is reducing, we can go ahead and work on the broccolini. For the broccolini, we have our broccolini, obviously, salt and pepper, as always, and a little bit of chicken stock. For the broccolini, we're gonna wanna go ahead and cut off the bottom ½ inch or so of this, just so you don't have any of these dry bits here at the bottom. Just kind of do that and discard these. And then we're gonna go right back to our pressure cooker. If you don't have one of these, you can go ahead and just steam them on your stovetop with the pot and the colander, or you can just boil them in the liquid itself, and that'll come out just fine. Using one of these, however, is gonna be a lot faster. So we'll go ahead and open this up. You can see I already got the crisper plate in there, and then I have the steamer rack that goes in just like that on top. I'm gonna take my chicken stock and my salt and pepper that I have for this, and we're gonna mix those together. Pour those right in here. Then lay your broccolini in here. Put on the pressure cooker lid, making sure this is set to seal. Then we'll select steam, set this to 5 minutes, and then start. Turns out that we do need to thicken this a little bit, so we're going to use about a tablespoon of cornstarch here, and that should be plenty to get that to the thickness that we want. Be sure to mix that in really good, and we'll see how that comes out. Okay, and that looks the way we want it to look now. So once our vegetables are ready, then we'll be ready to plate. All right, once that's done, we can go ahead and release this pressure. Be sure to keep your finger out of the way, otherwise you're going to get steam all over your hand. Okay, then we can pull these out and we'll be ready to plate. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about Joe's Phenomenal, you can watch a couple more videos, or you can check us out online at joesphenomenal.com. I thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your busy day to watch our Valentine's Day Filet Mignon video, and hope to see you back again here really soon. So until next time, I'm Joe, and I hope you have a phenomenal Valentine's Day. Take it easy.